So my book was Monster by Walter Dean Myers. This book is about some high school age students, some boys, I guess specifically, that are on trial for murder. Um, Basically, what happened was they went in, they were robbing a convenience store, and it kind of went wrong. The convenience store owner ended up dying, and so they were put on trial. Um, Now, the main character is his name is Steve Harmon. He is the one writing the story, and the interesting thing is that he is writing it as a screenplay. So he's thinking that it would make a good movie as he's thinking about things in the courtroom and in the prison cell awaiting trial. He's jotting it down, writing it as if it was a screenplay. So I think that's one of the most interesting things about the book. I have not read a book that has been written in that format before. Um, so I enjoyed that, and I did also enjoy the fact that me being a big movie fan, I enjoyed this story because with all the things that they included with it, even like okay, he enters the room and there's a hush over the crowd, that type of thing, kind of setting up the story. I think that helped me to then read it and really visualize it in my mind. Um, my words of caution is that it's definitely not for younger students. With the violence, the fact that they kind of give a lot of detail as far as how the store owner died, what happened there in the courtroom. They were basically asking lots of information about it, and then also just the things that were mentioned about what was going on in the prison cell. Steve Harmon, that was his first time ever being in prison. He was in prison waiting trial, so a lot of things were eye-opening for him. He had a lot of concerns. He was scared. He was worried that some of those things that were happening were going to happen to him. So, with that being said, I think that it was it would be a good idea to get parents' permission, to send home permission slips, maybe even um, having parents give them the opportunity to pre-read the book. As far as it's a pretty easy read, pretty quick read. There's a lot of spacing. It's different than the typical novel, so not as many words on the page, that type of thing. So it might be a good idea then for parents to read it ahead of time, so they kind of had an idea of what the book was going to be about. And then I guess the easiest thing would be just to have it be in a college class, and then you wouldn't really have to worry about the asking permission for the students to read it, that type of thing. One of the questions, I guess, before was if you could use an excerpt of it, and I think you possibly could. It might make it a little bit challenging just because you wouldn't have, I guess, the background information about the characters, and you wouldn't have kind of the story leading up to it. So I would say probably the whole thing if it was age appropriate. The instructional use, I would say you could do maybe some persuasive writing with it. You could also, having the audience persuade, or having the student persuade what, if they thought they were guilty, if they thought they were innocent, and what information they were basing their decision on. Maybe even doing that before you've read the final portion of the story. I think that would be more effective than reading the whole story, because then they would determine what the jury had determined was the verdict on their innocence or guilt. Because there were several individuals that were on trial at the same time. Just the main focus was on Steve Harmon, him being the main character. Now, I would also say that debating could also be a good thing. So if you didn't want to have them do persuasive speeches or persuasive writing, then maybe just debating on whether this group, you're going to debate why you think he's innocent, and you're going to say why he's guilty. I don't know. Those were some of the ideas I thought of. So anyway, those are some things that you could do with it. Now, my thought as far as who it was, which groups I guess you could share it with. He was an African American student, so there could be some students that are reading it that are African American that could relate to the story. I also thought inner city would maybe be like a good, students that are living in an inner city, or an area where there's a higher crime rate. While I think some of my students, and actually, obviously, my kindergarten students would not be a good fit for this book, but high school students here in Belton, Missouri, would have some, they could maybe relate some to the characters and to the story. They have some schema, but I'm thinking, maybe other neighboring districts that are closer to the Kansas City metro area might have a little bit more connection with the story. I know it would not be as common for students in my district to have brothers, sisters, fathers, grandfathers in prison, where maybe in another district that was more inner city, higher crime rate, that maybe you would see that there was maybe more of a connection there to the story. The fact that they would know people that were in prison or on trial or had been involved in something similar. So, would I recommend this story? Yes, definitely. I enjoyed reading it, and this says quite a bit for myself, just because I'm not typically a reader. But I did find it interesting. I found that it kept my attention. I would say, like I said, just that you just be careful of your audience, who you're sharing it with, especially if you're reading the whole thing. If you're doing clips, little snippets, then you would be able to kind of, I guess, take out some of those things and maybe make it a little bit better suited for younger ages. I taught 6th grade, and while I think my 6th graders would have been able to read it, because it's not written on a very high level, I still think the content would have not been appropriate for 6th grade. So, let's see. I think, I'm trying to see if I've touched base with everything. So I guess that's it. I'm a fast talker, so I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that I need to put in there. Okay, I guess that's all. So thank you for your time, and if you ever get a chance, check out Monster by Walter Dean Myers.